In this video, we will talk about effective documentation. In other words, what you should write down about your research process and data to make it easier to work with the files at a later date. We will discuss where to write down contextual information, as well as some strategies for making documentation a habit. Have you ever received data from someone and been very confused about what you are looking at? Have you ever set aside one of your own projects for a few months, then come back to it and felt lost about what you had been doing? Whether you are writing things down for other people or just keeping track of them for yourself, good documentation can save you from so much stress and extra effort. First, let's make a list of some of the things that you will want to keep track of while you do research. There are some file-specific details that you will want to document. For example, the file naming system and a description of variables, including units of measurement, abbreviations, and any codes for missing data. You will want to document the technical steps that were used to collect and process the data. The more detail you can provide, the better. You will want to keep track of citations for any data that you didn't create. If you downloaded information, what was the source? If one of your project partners shared files with you, are you able to give them credit? It is also good practice to document what software you used for data collection and analysis. This is because developers update software packages over time. Knowing what program and version of software were used can help future researchers open and interpret your results. Keeping notes from meetings with your project team or advisor can help you remember why certain decisions were made. And finally, documenting the organization of your files can be a quick way to explain what data are available, what files are included in each subfolder, and what is the relationship between them. Okay, so what should this documentation look like? It doesn't need to be fancy. If you are working with spreadsheets, add a tab with information about each of your variables, a definition, units of measurement, abbreviations, and so on. When writing code, you can put comments directly in the script. These notes should provide an overview of what each section of code does, what file inputs are needed to run the code, and the computational environment in which the code was written. If you are using a specialized software, check to see if the program has built-in options for documentation. For example, Atlas TI is a tool you can use to assign qualitative codes or themes within one document or across a set of materials. It has a memo option where you can record key decisions about what you are including or excluding from your theme and other important details. You might also look to see whether there are any field-specific standards for the data you are collecting. For example, there is a tree ring data standard for folks who study climate variation using the growth rings of trees. It is very resource and labor intensive to collect samples, so it makes sense for researchers across institutions and field sites to use a common standard. This way, they can build collective databases of available materials. When standards exist, there are usually tools and templates available to help get your documentation in the right format. So definitely check with your advisor or instructor to see whether there is something like this for your area of study. Note that when these standards exist, they often apply to only a subset of data. So for example, the tree ring data standard would cover what to write down about collected samples, but not every aspect of a project. If you are looking for a more general template for documenting your project, the libraries has a README text file that you are welcome to use or tweak. You can find it at z.umn.edu/readme. Good documentation takes time. When you are in the middle of doing analysis, it can be very hard to stop and write down things that in the moment feel obvious. One strategy is to set aside 15 minutes at the end of your work period. Use that time to describe files or variables that you created during the session. Write down steps you took processing data or add comments in your code. Take notes on important decisions that you made and next steps to try. You also might want to use this time to reorganize your files or remove files that you will no longer need. And remember, consistency is key. Take your notes in the same place. There are lots of good options and tools for documentation. Pick something that works for you and your data, then stick with it. Your primary collaborator is yourself 6 months from now, and your past self doesn't answer emails. You can watch the rest of the videos in this series at z.umn.edu/dmvideos.